I walked into what I thought was a surprise birthday dinner, only for my wife, Sophie, to hand me divorce papers in front of her family. Her dad laughed, saying, "You never measured up." I signed, walked out, and haven't looked back since. People always say your birthday should be the one day when everything revolves around you, where you feel loved, celebrated, maybe even a little spoiled. I never thought I'd be spending mine signing divorce papers in front of a laughing audience. My name is Tyler. I'm 34 years old. I live in Joliet, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. And until a few hours ago, I thought I was happily married. It was a surprise party, or so I was told. Sophie, my wife of 6 years, said we were having dinner at her parents' place, just the two of us. When I walked into that house, balloons were everywhere, and everyone from her side of the family was packed in tight. They all yelled surprise, and I smiled, even though I kind of hate parties. What I didn't expect was Sophie walking out from the kitchen holding a manila envelope, not a cake. Her expression was blank, unreadable. My first instinct was to joke. "Where's the candles?" I asked. Nobody laughed. That should have been my first clue. "Tyler," she said, lifting the envelope like it was some kind of trophy, "I'm leaving you." The room was silent, but only for a second. Then her father started laughing loud and guttural, like this was some sitcom twist he'd been waiting to act in. "Found someone better, did you?" he said between chuckles. "Told you, kid, you never measured up." The envelope landed in my hands. Divorce papers. Already signed on her end. I just stood there, completely still. I think I said her name. Just Sophie, maybe twice, trying to find something in her face, a joke, regret, a hint of humanity. There was nothing. She just shrugged. "It's not working anymore. I met someone else. Someone who understands me. Who can give me what you can't." Her mother popped open a bottle of champagne. No one even blinked. It was like they were toasting a retirement. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, waiting for the scene. The yelling, the begging, the tears. I didn't give it to them. I opened the envelope, pulled out the pen that came with it, and signed. The room got even quieter. I nodded, handed the papers back, and walked toward the door. "Wow," her father muttered. "Didn't even fight for her." I didn't turn around. Didn't say a word. I walked out, my heart pounding in my ears, past the balloons and the stupid gold streamers. Outside, the cold hit me in the face like a slap. I got in my car, sat for a moment, and stared at the dashboard. That was my 34th birthday. The day my marriage ended with a round of applause and a glass of champagne. And the moment I realized the life I thought I had was already gone. On the drive back from that nightmare of a party, I didn't cry. I didn't scream or punch the steering wheel. I just drove. Quiet. Blank. Like my brain had shut off all the noise so I wouldn't break apart on the road. But later that night, after I finally made it back to her house, I sat on the edge of the bed and let it all come rushing in. I should have seen it coming. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. The distance. The cold shoulder. The late nights at work she never used to have. All those missed dinners. The way her eyes stayed glued to her phone even when I was telling her about my day. We'd been off for a while. Probably close to a year, if I'm being honest. But I kept telling myself it was just a rough patch. Every marriage has them, right? That's what the blogs said. That's what the older couples at church said. You just work through it. The thing is, working through it only works if both people are still trying. Sophie wasn't. Not really. I think the cracks really started to show when I took that second job last spring. I was already working full-time at the garage, but when bills started piling up, I picked up night shifts driving deliveries for a catering company. I told myself it was temporary. Just until we caught up. Just until she could breathe a little easier. Sophie didn't say much when I told her. Just nodded and went back to her laptop. I thought she'd be proud. Grateful, maybe. But all she said that night was, "You're going to miss our anniversary dinner, then?" I remember laughing a little, like it was a joke. It wasn't. I tried making it up to her, rescheduling, planning little things on my days off. But she was already slipping away. Slowly. Quietly. Like someone turning the volume down on a song they didn't like anymore. And then came Ronan. At first, I only knew the name because she talked about him a lot. New guy at her office. Smart, ambitious, funny in a dry way, she said. I figured it was harmless. Everyone talks about their coworkers, right? But there was something about the way she smiled when she said his name. Something I tried to ignore. I'd come home late, exhausted, and find her curled up on the couch with a glass of wine, texting. I'd ask who it was, and she'd say work stuff. I believed her. Or maybe I just wanted to. We came from two different worlds, Sophie and me. Her family had money, not rich, but well off. Her dad ran some financial firm in downtown Chicago, and her mom spent her days at Pilates and overpriced boutiques. Me? I was raised by a single mom who worked 2 retail jobs and still somehow kept food on the table. I always knew her family looked down on me. I wasn't educated the way they were. Didn't talk the way they did. But Sophie told me once that she liked that. That I was real. that I grounded her. Guess that didn't last. The more I worked to keep things running, the more she drifted. And I thought, if I just keep going, if I keep hustling, keep providing, keep proving I'm worth it, maybe she'll come back to me. But no matter how many hours I clocked or bills I paid, I couldn't fix what she'd already decided was broken. I just didn't know, until that night, how far gone she really was. After I left the house, I didn't go back to my mom's. Didn't go to a friend's. I just drove aimlessly until I ended up in the parking lot of an old bar I used to go to in my early 20s. The sign was half burnt out, but the inside still looked the same: dark, sticky floors, cracked leather booths, and a jukebox that only worked when it felt like it. I slid onto a stool at the end of the bar, nodded at the bartender, and ordered a Coke. No alcohol. Not tonight. I needed my head clear. As I sat there, staring at the bubbles rising in my glass, it finally started to hit me. Not just the betrayal, but the humiliation. They planned it. All of them. Sophie, her parents, probably even her sisters. They invited me into that house, looked me in the eye, and set me up like it was entertainment. Her father's laugh wouldn't stop echoing in my head. I gripped the edge of the bar, trying to keep calm, but something inside me had shifted. The hurt was still there, but it was starting to harden into something colder. Something sharper. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to plead for her back. But I wasn't just going to roll over either. That's when I thought of Alex. Alex and I had known each other since we were kids. He became a lawyer, the kind people only call when they're in trouble and want to make someone else hurt. Ruthless, but loyal. The kind of guy who liked to win more than he liked to breathe. I pulled out my phone and texted him. I need to talk. Tonight if possible. Divorce stuff. He replied in less than 2 minutes. Come by the office. I'm here. I didn't even finish my drink. By the time I got to Alex's office, it was past 10. The place was quiet except for the hum of his space heater and the tapping of his fingers on a keyboard. He didn't ask for details right away. Just poured me a coffee, sat back, and waited. I think Sophie's been cheating, I said. He raised an eyebrow. You think? She has. With someone from work. Ronan something. You got proof? Not yet, I said. But I know where to look. We talked for an hour about leverage, assets, timelines. Alex told me what I needed to gather. Phone records, cloud backups, bank statements. He didn't say sorry. Didn't offer sympathy. That wasn't his style. What he gave me was something better. A plan. As I walked out of his office, I felt like I could breathe again. Not because I was okay. I wasn't. But because for the first time since that awful night, I had direction. A purpose. She wanted a war? She'd get one. The next morning, I woke up in my truck outside a 24-hour diner just off the interstate. I hadn't meant to fall asleep there. I was just too wired to go anywhere else after leaving Alex's office. My neck ached, my shirt was wrinkled, and my phone was buzzing nonstop. 10 missed texts. All from Sophie. Where are you? We need to talk. Tyler, you're being childish. Did you seriously take the money out of the joint account? That last one made me smile. Not a happy smile. More like the kind you make when you hear thunder but you're already holding the umbrella. Yes. Yes, I had taken the money. My half, anyway. Maybe a little less than half, if we're being precise. I wasn't trying to screw her over. I was just making sure she didn't screw me first. First thing I did that morning was call the bank and lock down the joint checking and savings accounts. Then I withdrew my share and moved it into a separate account under my name only. Next, I visited the small storage unit I'd rented a couple years ago and moved everything valuable from the house into it. My grandfather's watch, the tools I'd bought over the years, some personal items Sophie never even cared to ask about. By noon, I was at the courthouse filing a formal counter-petition for the divorce, which Alex had prepared for me. It spelled out our financial contributions, asset division requests, and, most importantly, reserved the right to introduce evidence of infidelity should things escalate. I didn't reply to Sophie's messages. Not one. Instead, I let Alex respond through the proper channels. He drafted a short, direct email to her lawyer, because of course she already had one, stating that communication should now go through him. No more casual texts. No more, can we talk like adults? Crap. This was business now. By the end of the day, I'd signed a 6-month lease on a small apartment downtown. Nothing fancy. Just one bedroom, a kitchenette, and a view of a liquor store. But it was mine. Clean slate. I sat on the floor that night, surrounded by boxes and silence. It didn't feel like home yet. Honestly, it didn't feel like anything. I was still in shock, even if my actions didn't show it. Part of me wondered if she expected me to fight for her. To cry and beg and make grand gestures. Maybe she thought I'd fall apart so completely that I'd have no choice but to grovel at her feet. But I didn't feel that urge. Not anymore. She wasn't the woman I married. Not even close. And if she wanted to see what life looked like without me, the version of me who always paid the bills, fixed the leaks, made her coffee just right, then she was about to find out. I wasn't hers anymore. And I wasn't playing her game. It happened on a Wednesday night, About 3 weeks after the party, I was sitting in my new apartment, flipping through takeout menus I wasn't actually going to order from, when I remembered something Sophie had said months ago. "It's so convenient we back up everything to the cloud," she told me, "in case one of us loses our phone or something." Back then, it made sense. We shared photos, calendar reminders, even documents. I never questioned it. Now, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I pulled out my laptop and logged into the shared cloud account. The password hadn't been changed. Either she forgot it still existed, or she assumed I was too dumb to check. Wrong on both counts. At first, there was nothing. A few receipts, grocery lists, selfies from trips I barely remembered. Then I found a folder labeled work stuff. Inside were screenshots. Hundreds of them. Messages between Sophie and Ronan. My heart started pounding before I even clicked on one. The first was innocent enough, jokes about office coffee, a meme or two. But the tone shifted fast. It went from "you're the only one who gets me" to "I can't wait to see you tonight." The timestamps told the story. They'd been seeing each other for at least 7 months. All those late meetings, the random out-of-town conferences, all lies. There were pictures, too. Hotel room mirrors. Wine glasses. His hand on her leg. A blurry photo of the two of them kissing in an elevator. I felt sick. I kept scrolling, part of me hoping it would stop. That maybe I'd misunderstood. But there was no misreading this. "Sophie, he thinks if he keeps working hard enough, I'll fall back in love with him. I almost feel bad. Ronan, let him keep trying. The guilt makes him stay out of the way." That one broke something in me. I downloaded everything. Every screenshot, every photo, every chat log. Then I zipped it into a folder and sent it to Alex with a short message. "Got what we need. Let's hit her where it hurts." His reply came 2 minutes later. "Now we're talking." The next day, Alex filed an official motion to amend the divorce petition, citing infidelity and requesting a reevaluation of asset division. With evidence in hand, we had leverage. And Sophie? She had a mess. I didn't call her. I didn't warn her. I wanted her to open that legal notice and feel the floor shift underneath her feet. I sat in my kitchen that night, staring at the screensaver on my laptop. The spinning blue light danced across the wall like nothing had happened. But something had. I wasn't just broken anymore. I was awake. I started with the coffee table. It was a beat-up, scratched mess I found on the side of the road near the new apartment. One leg was missing a screw, the top was stained with something that smelled vaguely like beer, and most people would have passed it by without a second glance. But I needed something to do with my hands. Something that didn't involve lawyers or court filings or memories I didn't ask to keep. So I dragged it up the stairs, cleaned it off, and started sanding. There was something calming about it. Simple. Honest. You put in the work, and the thing gets better. Unlike my marriage. By the end of the week, that table looked brand new. I posted it on a neighborhood Facebook group just to see what would happen. A woman named Marcy bought it for $80 and messaged me afterward to say how much she loved it. That felt good. Better than I expected. So I found another piece. Then another. Within a month, I'd fixed and flipped 6 different tables, 2 chairs, and a bookshelf that took me 3 hours just to get down the stairs. People started messaging me regularly, asking if I took custom orders. Sophie always said the way I liked old junk was weird. That I was wasting time fixing things that weren't worth saving. She was wrong. I registered a small side business online. Just a simple website with some before and after photos, a contact form, and the name I'd been thinking about since college, Second Chance Woodworks. It felt fitting. During the day, I still worked at the garage. Nights and weekends were for furniture. And slowly, I felt something inside me shifting, not overnight, but enough to notice. I started sleeping better. Eating real food. Going to the gym down the street with a guy from work named Troy, who refused to let me mope around in sweatpants forever. He wasn't wrong. Even my apartment started to feel like home. I added a rug, put up a couple of framed prints, got a plant that I still haven't killed, and I called my brother again for the first time in years. We talked for almost an hour. Nothing heavy, mostly sports and stupid memories, but it meant something. He said he was proud of me. That meant even more. I wasn't over everything. Not yet. There were still nights when I'd think about the party or the text I'd read on Sophie's cloud account, and I'd feel that tightness in my chest. But those moments didn't control me anymore. Sometimes, after working late, I'd sit on the little balcony outside my apartment with a cold drink and just breathe. Watch the street below. Listen to the sounds of a city that didn't know or care what I'd been through. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. I was building something, piece by piece. Just like that old coffee table. Only this time, I was doing it for me. It started with a text from Julie, Sophie's younger sister, the only one in that family who ever treated me like a real person. She hadn't reached out since the divorce kicked off, so when her name popped up on my phone, I hesitated before opening it. "Julie, can we talk?" "It's not about Sophie." "Well, not exactly." Curiosity got the better of me. We met at a quiet cafe on the edge of town, one of those places with mismatched chairs and chalkboard menus. She showed up looking tired, like she hadn't slept in days, and gave me a nervous half-smile as she sat down. "Thanks for meeting me," she said. "I wasn't sure if you'd even respond." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "But here I am." She stirred her tea for a long time before speaking again. "Things are bad. Like really bad." I raised an eyebrow. "Define bad." Julie looked around, then leaned in. "Sophie's life has completely blown up." "The affair?" "Everyone knows now. Her job's in jeopardy. HR launched an internal investigation after someone, probably her ex-friend Natalie, forwarded the messages. And Ronan? He's gone." "Gone like quit the job gone?" I asked. "Gone like fled the country gone." Turns out he wasn't just sleeping with Sophie, he was using her. She pulled out her phone and showed me a news article from a local business journal. Whistleblower claims data breach tied to senior project manager. Ronan's name was all over it. He used Sophie's access to get confidential info from her company, she said, then sold it to competitors. The company's in full crisis mode. Her family's financial holdings were tied up in it too. Her dad's firm? Under investigation. I leaned back in my chair, absorbing it. Julie sighed. She didn't know. Not about the fraud, anyway. But she helped him, signed off on things without reading. And now they're trying to distance themselves from her. So the same family that toasted her betrayal on my birthday is cutting her loose now? Julie nodded. They blame her, even though they're the ones who enabled all of it. I didn't feel sorry. Not really. But I didn't gloat either. There was a time I might have. She's been staying at her parents' place, but it's tense. Her dad's furious. Her mom won't speak to her. And she's been asking about you. I took a sip of coffee. Not interested. Julie nodded slowly. I figured. She doesn't know I reached out. I just thought you should hear it. Thanks, I said. And I meant it. I paid the check and walked her to her car. She gave me a hug, then got in and drove off. I stood there for a while, watching the cars pass. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt calm. Whatever Sophie was dealing with now, that was her storm to weather. I had mine already. I survived it. And I wasn't about to be dragged back into hers. I went home, fed myself, and stayed up late working on a walnut sideboard I'd picked up from a garage sale. No texts. No calls. No drama. Just peace. And that was more than enough. It was just after 9 when I heard the knock on my apartment door. Not a polite knock, either, more like a frantic, uneven pounding that made my stomach drop before I even got up from the couch. I already knew who it was. I opened the door slowly, and there she was. Sophie. Hair a mess, makeup smudged, wearing a hoodie that didn't look like hers. Her eyes were puffy, like she'd either been crying all day or hadn't slept in a while. Probably both. She stared at me for a second, like she didn't recognize me in my gym shorts and t-shirt. Like this version of me didn't fit the version she thought she knew. Then she said, "Can I come in?" I didn't move. "Why?" She swallowed hard. "Because I have nowhere else to go." I let out a slow breath, stepped aside, and motioned toward the kitchen. She walked in like a ghost, like the weight of the past few weeks had finally crushed whatever armor she'd been wearing. "I heard about Ronan," I said flatly. Her shoulders sank. "Yeah, turns out I was just one of many stops on his little career climb." She sat at the kitchen table, folded her arms, and looked down at the floor. "They fired me," she said after a moment. "Not officially, but it's coming. My dad's freezing all my accounts. Says I'm a liability now." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Must be hard." Her eyes met mine, glassy and pleading. "I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I messed up. And I'm sorry. For everything." I didn't say anything. I thought. I don't know what I thought, she went on. That Ronan was different. That I needed something more. But he used me. And now I've lost everything. "You didn't lose me," I said. "You threw me away." She winced, nodded. "You're right." Silence stretched between us. Then she whispered, "I want to come back." I raised my eyebrows. "To what?" She looked confused, like she didn't expect the question. "To us. To you. I know I don't deserve it, but..." I held up a hand. "Stop. You don't want me. You just don't want to be alone." "That's not true," she said quickly. "It is," I said, calm and steady. "And that's okay. You made your choice. And now I'm making mine." Her voice cracked. "So that's it." I walked over, grabbed a pillow and a folded blanket from the hall closet, and handed them to her. "You can stay here. One night. Couch only. After that, you figure things out on your own." Tears spilled over. "Tyler, please." "I mean it," I said, not unkindly. "This isn't a movie. I'm not going to forget everything because you showed up sad." She took the blanket with shaking hands, sat on the couch, and pulled her knees to her chest. I turned off the lights and walked into my bedroom, closing the door behind me. And for the first time, I didn't wonder if she'd ever come back. Because I already knew the answer. She wasn't mine anymore. And I was finally okay with that. The next morning, I woke up early, habit mostly. The sun hadn't even cleared the rooftops, but I could already hear the faint buzz of traffic outside and the hum of my neighbor's coffee grinder through the wall. I stretched, pulled on a t-shirt, and stepped into the living room. Sophie was gone. The pillow and blanket were folded neatly on the couch. The door was locked. Not a note. Not a text. Just gone. Good. I made coffee and sat on the balcony, scrolling through emails. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But something told me to answer. Tyler speaking. A familiar voice came through the line, sharp and bitter, like old whiskey gone bad. Tyler, it's Greg. Sophie's father. Of course it was. What do you want? A long pause. Then a sigh. Look, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I need your help. I nearly laughed out loud. That's rich. It's not for me, he said quickly. It's the firm. We're in trouble. Ronan. He got access to internal files through Sophie. We're looking at lawsuits, SEC audits, you name it. And you think I can fix that? I asked. You're good with business, he said. You've always had a level head. I was hoping you might know someone, a consultant maybe, someone who could help us get back on track. I let the silence sit for a beat before answering. You remember what you said at the birthday party? He didn't respond. You laughed in my face. Told me I never measured up. Popped champagne like my pain was something to celebrate. Still nothing. I'm not the guy who gets walked on anymore, Greg. I'm not asking for a handout, he said, voice low. Just a name. I took a sip of coffee. I'll text you the number of someone named Mia. She's a business turnaround consultant. Smart. Ruthless. Expensive. That's it. That's all you get. He exhaled like he wanted to argue, but knew better. I ended the call. A few hours later, Sophie showed up one last time to get her things. I didn't say much. She looked at the apartment like it was a dream slipping away. Not once did she ask to stay. Not once did I offer. Just before she left, she noticed a framed photo on my entry table. Me and someone new. Mia. We'd been seeing each other a little. Nothing serious yet. Just real. Easy. Sophie stared at the photo a second too long. Then she nodded, like she finally understood. You're doing better, she said. I didn't respond. She closed the door behind her, and just like that, she was gone. No tears. No regrets. I stood there in the quiet, hands in my pockets, and felt something unexpected. Relief. Pure and simple. The kind that told me I'd finally closed the door, not just on her, but on the version of myself that used to need her. It started with a flyer taped to the window of the hardware store near my shop. Adopt, don't shop. Local shelter adoption day this Saturday. I wasn't planning on stopping by. I'd gone in for wood glue. But as I walked out with the bottle in one hand and a bag of screws in the other, I saw them, all those dogs, lined up in wire pins, tongues out, tails wagging, completely unaware of the messiness of human lives. That's when I met Max. He wasn't the biggest or the cutest. Just a medium-sized mutt with wiry fur, one floppy ear, and a tail that wagged like it owed someone money. But he looked at me like I was the first person who'd ever really seen him. What's his story? I asked the volunteer. He's been through a few homes, she said. Nothing dramatic, just people kept giving up on him. I knelt down, and Max pressed his head into my knee. That was it. I signed the papers that afternoon. Max adjusted to apartment life pretty quick. He liked the balcony, the couch, and especially the leftover chicken I never meant to share. I started waking up earlier just to walk him before work. At night, he'd curl up next to me while I worked on furniture, keeping me company like it was the most natural thing in the world. The side business, Second Chance Woodworks, kept growing. Orders started coming in from people I didn't even know, friends of friends, random referrals, people who just liked the idea of giving old things a new life. I opened an Instagram page, posted photos, told short stories about the pieces. A dining table that had been in a family for 3 generations but needed a new start. A rocking chair that had survived a fire. People connected with that. Turns out, we're all just trying to restore something. Somewhere along the way, I realized I hadn't thought about Sophie in days. Not out of bitterness or revenge. She just stopped living in my head rent-free. Julie texted me once, saying Sophie moved out of her parents' place. Got a job in another city. I wished her well, silently, and left it at that. I focused on my life. The kind that didn't revolve around someone else's expectations. I hosted a small barbecue at my apartment complex one weekend, nothing fancy. A few friends, some burgers, a cooler full of beer, and Max darting between everyone like he owned the place. As the sun set and the laughter echoed off the buildings, I felt it again. That quiet, powerful feeling I hadn't known I was missing. Freedom. Not just from Sophie. From the version of myself that thought love meant sacrifice without limits. That thought being steady meant being small. That thought you had to lose yourself to keep someone else. Now, I had Max. I had my tools. I had a growing list of clients and a calendar full of things I actually wanted to do. And every night, as I locked the door, turned off the lights, and heard the soft click of Max's nails on the floor behind me, I felt the same thing. Peace. The kind you don't find. The kind you build.